there, and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you could join us today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
So, if you've been thinking about how to maximize your real estate investments, today's episode is really exciting. We're diving into a topic that's gaining a lot of traction: accessory dwelling units, or ADUs.
Absolutely, Sarah. ADUs can be a game changer for real estate investors, especially for those looking to build long-term wealth.
Right? They offer so many options, from generating rental income to providing space for family or guests.
Exactly. We'll explore what ADUs are, the different types you might consider, and some practical tips on how to get started.
Plus, we'll touch on the potential financial benefits, local regulations, and how they can fit into your overall investment strategy.
And let's not forget about the emotional side of it, like how having a separate space can really enhance your lifestyle or help with family dynamics.
So whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, there's something here for everyone.
Definitely, and I think the flexibility of ADUs is something that really resonates with many people over 40.
For sure. All right, let's jump right in and unpack what ADUs are all about.
Sarah, one of the big reasons why ADUs or accessory dwelling units are gaining so much attention right now is because they really align with the financial realities many folks over 40 are facing today.
Absolutely. It's like, as we approach retirement, the need for financial security becomes even more pressing, right?
Exactly. And with rising inflation, many people are worried about their savings losing value over time. Having an ADU can create a steady stream of rental income, which is pretty crucial for maintaining that financial cushion.
Yeah, and I've heard stories of investors who've added ADUs to their properties, and it's really transformed their situations. Like, there's this couple I know. Let's call them John and Lisa. They were in their late 50s, and they were really feeling the pinch of rising costs.
Right, and they decided to convert their garage into an ADU. It wasn't a huge investment, but it gave them extra income each month, which helped them feel secure about their retirement plans.
That's such a smart move. And I bet they were also able to enhance the value of their home at the same time, right?
Exactly. It's like two birds with one stone. They're generating income, plus the value of their property has increased. So when they're ready to sell, they'll likely see a nice return on their investment.
And it's not just about the money. There's also something really comforting about having that financial security, especially as we age.
For sure. It's like you're not just building wealth for yourself, but also creating a legacy for your family. I remember another investor, let's call her Mary. She built an ADU on her property, and now her adult daughter lives there with her kids.
That's such a great way to keep the family close.
Right? And Mary mentioned how much peace of mind it gives her, knowing that her daughter and grandkids are just a few steps away. It's not only financial support, but emotional support too.
Absolutely. It's that whole idea of having a safety net, both financially and personally.
And consider the current economic trends. With housing prices fluctuating, having an ADU can provide a buffer against market shifts. If one part of your income takes a hit, you have that rental income to rely on.
Yeah, it's like a backup plan,
Exactly. And with more and more people looking to rent rather than buy, the demand for rental properties is increasing. So adding an ADU could really make a lot of sense right now.
And it's not just about financial investment. It's also about being adaptable in changing markets.
Definitely. Plus, think about the aging population. Many people over 40 are also thinking about how to accommodate aging parents or family members. An ADU can be a perfect solution for that.
Right. It's like a win-win. You can help out family while also generating income, or even just having some extra space, depending on how you choose to use it.
And in times of uncertainty, people tend to appreciate that kind of flexibility. It makes the whole idea of homeownership feel more secure, more relevant.
It really does. And with the trend of wealth transfer happening now, it's essential to consider how these investments can impact future generations.
Yes, many people are thinking long-term, not just for themselves, but for their kids and grandkids. If you can create a stable income source now, you're essentially setting them up for success down the line.
And it's not just about the money, right? It's about building a legacy, a foundation for future generations to thrive on.
Exactly. I think that's what makes ADUs so appealing. They offer a practical solution to many of the challenges people face today, while also contributing to long-term wealth.
And it's interesting to see how this can tie into someone's retirement timeline too, right? Like, if someone has an ADU that's generating income, it can really change how they approach their retirement savings.
Totally. It can help them retire earlier, or at least with more peace of mind. They're not relying solely on their savings or pensions, which can feel so daunting.
It's like having that extra layer of security, which can change the whole narrative around retirement.
Yes, and with the way the market is shifting, it's crucial to think outside the box and find these innovative ways to build wealth.
And for those who might feel overwhelmed by the idea of investing in real estate, ADUs can seem much more manageable.
Absolutely. They're often less expensive than buying another property, and the process can be simpler, especially if you're already a homeowner.
Right. And that's something we'll dive into next, the core strategies for getting started with ADUs.
Exactly. Because once you see how impactful these units can be, it makes it easier to take that first step. So let's dive into some core strategies for investing in accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. One of the first things I always tell new investors is to understand the 1% rule.
Right, the 1% rule. That's where you want the monthly rent to equal at least 1% of your total investment in the property, correct?
Exactly. So if you buy a property for, let's say, $300,000, you'd want to aim for $3,000 a month in rent. That's a quick way to gauge if the investment could be worth it.
That makes sense. But what if the rent is lower?
Well, if you're looking at a property and the rent is around, say, $2, $500, you might want to dig deeper. You can still make it work, but you need to consider other factors, like location, potential appreciation, or maybe a lower purchase price.
Right, so it's more holistic than just that one number.
Exactly. And then there's the 50% rule, which is about expenses. A good guideline is to assume that about 50% of your rental income will go towards operating expenses, repairs, property management, taxes, insurance, all that.
So if we stick with that $3,000 monthly rent, you're looking at about $1, $500 going towards expenses?
Yes! And that gives you a clearer picture of your cash flow. If you can cover the mortgage and still have money left over, you're in a good position.
Speaking of mortgages, what financing options should someone consider when investing in ADUs?
Great question. Traditional mortgages are one option, but many investors overlook home equity lines of credit, or HELOCs. If you already own a home and have built up some equity, a HELOC can be a low-interest way to fund your ADU investment.
So you're leveraging the equity in your current property to finance a new one?
Exactly. And then there are also construction loans if you're building an ADU from scratch. They typically cover both the purchase of the land and the construction costs.
That sounds like a lot to manage. Are there specific property types or markets that are better suited for ADU investing?
Absolutely. Urban areas with a housing shortage often have more demand for rentals, including ADUs. Places where zoning laws have recently changed to allow for ADUs are also golden opportunities.
So if you find a property in one of those areas, it could be a real win?
Definitely. And you want to ensure that the property itself can accommodate an ADU. Look for properties with enough land and make sure to check local regulations because they can vary widely.
Yeah, I've heard some places have strict rules on how big an ADU can be, or even if you can build one at all.
Exactly. You might find a great property, but if the local zoning doesn't allow for an ADU, it can become a real headache.
Good point. So once you've found a property and figured out financing, how do you evaluate the deal further?
One way is to calculate the cap rate, which is the net operating income divided by the property value. For example, if your property generates $24,000 in annual rent and has expenses of $12,000, your net operating income would be $12,000. If the property is valued at $300,000, your cap rate would be 4%.
So a 4% cap rate isn't bad, but you'd want to compare it against other similar investments, right?
Exactly. Generally, you want to aim for a cap rate of at least 6% or higher in many markets, but that can vary based on the area and property type.
And what about things like appreciation? Should that factor into your decision?
Definitely. While cash flow is critical, appreciation can significantly boost your overall return on investment. You want to look at market trends and forecasts for the area you're investing in.
That sounds like a lot of research. What resources do you recommend for that?
Check out local real estate market reports or online platforms like Zillow and Redfin. They can provide data on historical prices, rental trends, and even neighborhood analytics.
And what about a deal evaluation checklist? Is there something you use?
Yes, I have a simple checklist. First, assess the property: location, size, condition. Then, calculate your potential rental income, expenses, and apply the 1% and 50% rules. After that, look at financing options and analyze your cap rate. Finally, check for any zoning restrictions.
That sounds manageable. And once you have all that info, it's just about making the numbers work, right?
Exactly. But remember, don't rush. Take your time to evaluate each deal carefully.
And if it doesn't feel right, it's okay to walk away, right?
Absolutely. There are always other opportunities.
So, with all that said, what are some common pitfalls people should look out for when getting into ADU investing?
Well, one big pitfall is underestimating the costs. People think they can build an ADU for less than it actually costs, and that can lead to financial strain.
That's a tough lesson to learn. What else?
Another is not doing enough research on local regulations. You might find a property that seems perfect, but then realize you can't build an ADU there.
Definitely important to know the rules beforehand.
And then there's the temptation to over-leverage. It's easy to get excited and stretch your finances too thin.
So staying grounded and informed is key.
Exactly. You want to build wealth, but also protect yourself in the process.
Well, that's a lot of great advice, Mike. I'm sure our listeners will find it super helpful as they consider their own ADU investments.
So, Sarah, one of the biggest pitfalls I see with investors, especially those just starting out with ADUs, is over-leveraging. You know, they get so excited about potential profits that they stretch their finances too thin.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's easy to get carried away. Can you give us an example of what that looks like in real life?
Sure. I had a client a few years back who bought a property with an existing home and a plan to add an ADU. They took on a hefty mortgage, thinking the rental income would cover the costs, but they didn't factor in the expenses of renovations and unexpected repairs.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, once they started the renovation, they quickly realized that the costs were much higher than anticipated. And then, when they finally rented out the ADU, the income wasn't enough to cover their mortgage and all the extra expenses.
That's tough. So what could they have done differently?
A good rule of thumb is to have a solid budget in place before making any investments. They should have included a contingency fund in their calculations, maybe around 10 to 15% of the renovation costs to cover unexpected expenses. And they really should have done their homework on rental prices in the area.
Right. I guess it's essential to know the market. What's another common mistake you see?
Bad tenants. Definitely. This can be a huge headache for property owners. I had another client who was so eager to fill their ADU that they didn't properly vet their tenants.
Oh no. What happened there?
They ended up with a tenant who had a history of late payments and didn't take care of the property. It was a nightmare. They had to spend a lot on repairs and legal fees to evict them, which really ate into their profits.
That sounds painful. So how can someone avoid that situation?
It's crucial to thoroughly screen tenants. Check their credit history, employment status, and past rental references. A good lease agreement should also clearly outline expectations, and don't be afraid to say no if something feels off during the application process.
Yeah, trusting your gut is important. What about cash flow? I imagine that's another area where people stumble.
Absolutely. Many investors, especially new ones, ignore cash flow when diving into the ADU market. I once worked with a couple who focused solely on the potential appreciation of their investment without considering the monthly cash flow.
That seems risky. What did they miss?
Well, they ended up with a property that looked great on paper, but the rental income barely covered their monthly expenses. They didn't factor in things like property management fees, maintenance, and property taxes. The cash flow is tight, leading to stress and financial strain.
So what's the key takeaway here?
Always calculate your expected cash flow before committing to an investment. Make sure that the rental income not only covers your mortgage, but also leaves you with some profit after all expenses are accounted for.
That makes total sense. I can see how important it is to have a clear financial picture. What about timing the market? I've heard that can trip people up too.
Yes, timing the market can be quite tricky. I had a client who was waiting for the perfect time to invest in an ADU, thinking prices would drop. They held off for a year, and by the time they finally jumped in, prices had skyrocketed.
Oh wow, that's frustrating.
Right? Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, it's often better to focus on the fundamentals of your investment. If you find a solid property that meets your criteria, don't let market timing hold you back.
So it's about being proactive rather than reactive?
Exactly. And speaking of hidden costs, that's another common oversight. Many investors overlook costs like utility upgrades, landscaping, and permits.
That's a great point. It can be easy to forget about those little things that add up.
Yes, I had one investor who was shocked to discover that their water and electrical systems needed major upgrades to accommodate the new ADU. They hadn't planned for that in their budget, and it created significant delays and expenses.
Wow, that must have been a blow.
It was. They could have avoided it by doing a thorough inspection before purchasing the property. Understanding the current infrastructure and what would be needed to support an ADU is crucial.
So it sounds like due diligence is key. Are there any other red flags investors should watch out for?
For sure. When inspecting a property, keep an eye out for things like zoning restrictions or neighborhood covenants that might limit your ability to add an ADU. I've seen investors get really excited about a property only to find out later that adding an ADU isn't allowed.
That's a tough lesson to learn.
It really is. Always check local zoning laws and regulations before making a purchase. And don't hesitate to consult with a real estate agent who's familiar with the area.
Such practical advice, Mike. So, if someone finds themselves in a situation where they've made one of these mistakes, what steps can they take to recover or avoid similar issues in the future?
Great question. First, take a step back and assess the situation. If it's a financial strain, consider working with a financial advisor to revise your budget. They can help you strategize moving forward.
And what about tenants? If someone is dealing with bad tenants, what's the best course of action?
Communication is key. If you're facing issues, try to discuss them with your tenants first. If that doesn't work, make sure you know your rights as a landlord and follow the legal process for eviction if necessary. And remember, screening next time is vital.
So it's about learning from the experience and being proactive moving forward?
Exactly. Mistakes will happen, but the important part is to learn from them and apply those lessons to future investments.
Such valuable insights, Mike. I know our listeners will appreciate these real-life lessons and practical strategies. What's next on our agenda?
All right, so let's dive into some immediate steps folks can take right now to start their journey with ADUs.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about taking that first step, right? So what's the first thing they should do?
Well, I recommend starting with some research. You can use platforms like Zillow to get a feel for property values in your area and see what ADUs are currently listed for. It's a great way to understand the market.
Absolutely, and it's super user-friendly, so you don't need to be a tech whiz to navigate it.
Exactly. And then there's also Bigger Pockets. It's not just a website, it's a whole community. The forums are filled with experienced investors sharing their insights, and you can even find a calculator there to crunch the numbers on potential deals.
Right, that's crucial. Knowing your numbers can make or break your investment.
For sure. Plus, if you're looking at specific properties, DealCheck is a fantastic tool. It helps you analyze cash flow, ROI, and lets you compare different properties side by side.
Oh, I love that. It makes it so much easier to visualize your options. What about local resources?
Good point. Checking your local MLS or multiple listing service can be a game changer. It gives you access to comprehensive listings in your area and often includes properties before they hit the general market.
That's a great tip. Getting in early can really give you an edge.
And don't forget about Rentometer. This tool is super handy for figuring out what you can charge for rent on an ADU. It's important to know what the market will bear.
Yeah, understanding rental rates can help you project your income realistically.
Right, and once you've done some of that groundwork, I'd suggest setting a goal to analyze at least one deal per week. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment, just a consistent effort.
That's a manageable way to build your skills.
Exactly. And if you can, try to join a local real estate meetup. It's a fantastic way to network and learn from others who are on the same path.
Networking is so important. You never know who might have a lead or a piece of advice that could really benefit you.
And speaking of advice, there are some great books and podcasts out there. For books, I'd recommend the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner. It's thorough and covers everything you need to know.
I've heard that's a solid read. And for podcasts, have you checked out Bigger Pockets podcast? It's full of real stories from people who've had success in real estate.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to hear those real-life experiences. I always say, if they can do it, so can you, you know?
Totally. It's all about mindset and starting where you are.
Right. And another habit to consider is setting aside a specific time each week to review your progress. Whether it's jotting down notes, tracking your research, or evaluating a potential deal.
That's such a good idea. Keeping track of what you've learned will really help you stay motivated and focused.
And don't hesitate to reach out to local municipalities to understand the zoning laws and regulations surrounding ADUs in your area. It's crucial to know what's allowed before you dive in.
Great point. Getting that clarity up front can save you a lot of headaches later on.
So all these tools and steps are really about building your foundation. With these on your side, you can begin to feel more confident in your investing journey.
Yeah, and it's all about taking those small, actionable steps that lead to big changes over time. So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together.
So as we wrap up this episode, let's quickly recap some of the key takeaways from our discussion on ADU investing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack. First off, I think one of the biggest points is the flexibility that ADUs offer. They can be used for family or as rental units, which really opens up your options, right?
Absolutely. And then there's the financial aspect. Adding an ADU can significantly increase your property's value, which is a huge win for long-term wealth building.
Right, and let's not forget about the potential for passive income. Renting out an ADU can provide that extra cash flow, which is so valuable, especially as you're planning for retirement.
Exactly. And I think another important takeaway is the zoning and permitting process. It can feel a bit daunting, but understanding the local regulations is essential. It can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
For sure. And don't underestimate the community aspect. ADUs can help strengthen neighborhood ties and provide affordable housing options. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Well said, Sarah. So if you're over 40 and looking at real estate as a way to build wealth, remember that investing in ADUs can be a smart strategy.
Yeah, it's all about taking those steps towards financial freedom, one property at a time.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have.
And hey, if you know someone over 40 who's thinking about investing in property, share this episode with them.
Next time, we're diving into pad splits and co-living. That's a fascinating approach to maximizing single-family ROI.
You won't want to miss it.
Until then, keep investing in your future, and thank you for joining us today.
Bye, everyone.